Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today, I am joined by Shawn Rainey, Director of Design at Blue Frog. Shawn helps guide orthodontic practices through one of the most complex parts of a startup, designing and building a space that actually supports how the practice will function long term. From choosing the right delivery model to evaluating spaces and avoiding hidden costs, Shawn brings a practical perspective on decisions that can significantly impact both timeline and budget. In this episode, we're diving into what doctors should understand before signing a lease and how to approach the design process with clarity and confidence. So let's take a look. And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey, docs. If your new patient follow-up depends on someone remembering, it's leaking revenue. Greyfinch automates new patient follow-up, texts and emails go out automatically, and your treatment coordinator just checks their tasks list to see what needs a quick call or a more personalized message. That is one of the many reasons I recommend everyone take a look at Greyfinch. It isn't just a follow-up tool, it's a complete practice management software built to help you grow and scale. Stop leaking revenue and get $500 off your startup fee with the Jill Allen special at greyfinch.com/Jill Allen. Are you thinking about opening an orthodontic practice? I know, it's a big decision, but saving 25% on the ADEC equipment you need to get started, that's an easy one. Because ADEC has a special program called Smart Start, designed to help you launch your first practice. You get up to 25% off your ADEC orthodontic equipment and furniture. You also get complimentary services to help you run and grow your business. And my favorite part, access to the Smart Start pricing for 2 whole years after you open your doors. That gives you flexibility to add more chairs as your cash flow grows. It's pretty smart. As an orthodontist, you care about getting all the little details right, and ADEC really got it right with this program. So if starting off with a big savings on ADEC equipment sounds good to you, the ADEC Smart Start is definitely worth a closer look. Just follow the link in the show notes to learn more. Shawn, I am so excited to have you on Hey Docs. Thanks for being here today.
Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm sure you know this, but the way I love to start off Hey Docs is when I've had a guest that's not been on the show before. I love it if you would just start out and talk to us a little bit about who you are, your background, and a little bit about Blue Frog.
Sure. So I got out of high school and went right into the Army for a few years. And after I came out of that, a personal connection got me into the design field in home design. This is back in the mid 90s. And then another connection at one point brought me up to Atlanta to work for Atlanta Design, which is a division of Atlanta Dental Supply now. And I worked there for on and off for almost 15 years, doing pretty much just dental office design and running the architectural department there for a while. Then I was hired by Blue Frog back in 2011 to come on and create a design build company. So they were a bid build company at the time. And what was funny was they had been building a lot of the dental offices that we would design over at Atlanta Design. They knew me and they poached me from over there, which nobody liked, but it's going on 15 years here at Blue Frog now, which is crazy to think that it's been that long, but it's been a blessing. And so now I'm the director of the design department. We have architect here, multiple design PMs, drafters. We have a civil engineering firm here as well. It took me a bit to figure out what is the difference between the normal architecture and bidding process with contractors, which is what I was used to up until here, to them kind of training me and me training them and us becoming a true design build company. So I have been married going on 34 years. I've got
Congrats.
3 great kids. 2 of them graduated UGA right down the road here in Athens, and the other one's in college out in Rome right now playing football. And I got
Nice.
2 golden retrievers.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. The whole picture. That's great. We're going to jump right in here, and I work with a lot of startups, and I think one of the scariest thing that a doctor is going to do. It's always scary to think about purchasing a practice, but the component with purchasing is you at least know you've got something as you're getting started.
Right.
Where when we look at doing startups, there's just from demographics to doors open and everything in between that we have to think about. And so one of the things that I want to dive into with you is the whole construction piece of it. And I love your history, knowing that you've been in this field for over 15 years now, because I, like you, have been doing this for quite a while. We'll be celebrating our 20th year in the consulting side, where I've been focusing on startups. And it has changed a lot over the years. To your point of, we see these swings where we're going from bidding out our projects to design builds. And what I really want to get into is have you break that down and really talk about the differences and what that means. And especially, I think, even now in 2026 and forward, because I even feel like there's been some changes from even how this process might have been done, even in the last 10 years or so, as we're seeing things come along. So would you mind breaking that down and just taking us, pretend we know nothing, and walking us back to what does it mean to do the difference between the two?
Sure. Yeah, so where I came from was where an engineering firm would create the design, would work with a client and create a set of documents. And they would have an idea of what costs were, like per square foot. But then site costs, you really don't know until you get into it, because the site can be half of the whole cost of the project, depending on site. So we would do that, and then we would send out the projects to a select group of bidders, and then we wait for them to send us bids back, and then we would compare all the bids, and we'd be like, hey, I was one of the ones who did it, and I'd be like, okay, hey, you seem to be really high on this one. Why are you so high on this line? All these other bidders are here. And you'd be comparing all these different contractors. And then it's also trying to get it into permit. And so because you want the contractors to try to get you pricing up front and narrow down that scope of how many contractors are in it, like there's times we've sent to 12 different contractors, which drove me crazy, because it's a lot of coordination after the fact. But we might send a preliminary set out to them. The set's not done, so they really don't have enough to go off of to really create a price. They're just throwing a number at it and hoping they're the low guy. And then once we got them in, then we would help the client. Okay, here's all and that was because we were very hands-on, but we would help the client, like, okay, here's all the contractors. We want you to set up meetings with all of them. We want you to find out who you feel good talking to and who you think you'd work with good. And then we'd go to that contractor and be like, okay, your price is too high. How much can we get this dropped? He only has this much money. So it's just a long process. So what we decided to do, there are also some contractors who kind of team up with an architect and engineering firm, and there's a lot of design build that's that way as well. And that goes a little faster because they do work together a little bit closer, but they're still two separate companies. So in the end, when you get to the field and the contractor's building something and they go back to the client and say, hey, this wasn't in the plan, sorry, we got to do a change order for this. So you got the architect and you got the builder. They're both pointing at each other, and the engineers and the building engineers, the civil engineers, and they're all pointing at each other. That's his fault. It's all kind of shifting blame game right there. But no matter what, the doctor is stuck in the middle. He's still got to have this, whatever this has happened. It doesn't matter the architect didn't get it in the plans, because he still has to have it. And now he's got to pay really an upcharge, most likely, for it, because if it was bid in the beginning and it was included, then he would have had it in the price, and it would have been a competitive price up front to try to win the job. But the thing that falls to the wayside, nobody thinks about when they're bidding, is that the contractor's only going to bid what's in the plan. So there's going to be gaps in the plans, especially if it's not a full set of plans. And the contractor, they're not trying to bait and switch. It's just the way the construction world runs, right? So they're going to know off the bat, okay, these are the gaps in the plans. We're going to end up having to do this stuff later. So there's going to be a change order for it. And they can come back and charge a premium markup for that as well, because you're the client. You don't control this. You're already in it, right? The earthwork's been dug, the foundation's down. Oh, didn't realize we needed steel here. So now you're going to have to pay for it no matter what. And it would have been cheaper if it would have been up front. So the big difference there is that design build, like what we do it, is that we're all in the same company. When they hired me, the issue they were having, it was because of a pain point of having another architect outside, and the architect, that one in particular, was telling people, hey, you need to bid this out to other people, just like he told all his other clients. So he was biting the hand that feeds him, which wasn't very smart anyways. But he brought me in to say, I want the advocate for the client to be in the company. I want them to be able to say, hey, we are going to take care of this for you. This is one of the biggest things that most people will put money towards and invest in their lifetime, right? So whether it's a startup practice, or once you build your startup practice to a point, you need to go build a new building. Like that's one of your biggest investments ever. So our goal is always to take the most stress off the client as possible and make sure that they know they have an advocate in who they're contracting, right? So by having design in-house, we are able to go through that whole process with them. And all along that process, we have my estimation department is literally 20 feet away from me. So instead of saying, hey, these are like industry standards we're seeing right now, I can go to them and say, how much was that job you bid last week? And they have real world numbers, and we do full budget estimates. A lot of times for us, and our process is that we will get with a client up front and we'll do a test fit plan for them, just a free test fit.
Yep.
We'll take the space they have and we'll determine, okay, what do you want in this space? How many bays and chairs you want in your bay? How many private rooms you want? How many semi-private? A whole questionnaire that we have. But we'll take that, we'll create a whole test fit, and then we'll get our estimation department to go, and they will actually do takeoffs off of that and do a whole 2-page breakdown, like how much plumbing we think it's going to be, electrical, cabinets, all that stuff, how much design's going to be, how much profit we've got in there. It's all very transparent. And so we can give that to them. They can take that to the bank. And then our goal is to try to stay as close to that budget as possible the entire way through the design process. So
yeah, that's great.
As we go through that, we update the budget every single time we have a meeting with a client and make changes, so that we can tell them, hey, listen, okay, we did this. This is how it affected the budget, like specifically. And by the time we get done with that budget, then the goal is to be within 3 to 5% of that final budget when we actually bid out the project. So it's totally different in that they are keeping track and they have more control of the budget the entire way through design instead of waiting till the end. One thing that happens in the design bid build arena is that you have to come back and do value engineering. And one of the favorite things, I had an old architect I knew, and he said, yeah, value engineering is when you cut value out of the project. So it's not necessarily making things better. It's like the HVAC guy says, hey, we can, instead of doing spiral duct up here in this nice open space, we can just do square duct and save you some money. I'm like, great, but that's not the vision we shared with the client and they approved. But when it's in-house, I don't have to do that. The other way that so that's financially, to me, you're saving money that way and controlling the costs along the whole way. The other thing is speed. So a lot of companies will take and they will develop that kind of preliminary set to get out to permit and get it out to contractors. We do something similar. We will develop a preliminary set that's enough to submit for permit. It's got a whole MEP engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineering in it, structural if needed. But that gets sent into permit. And then while it's in permit, we are focusing like a fine-tooth comb going through the entire set of drawings. And we may spend 40 or 50 hours just reviewing and coordinating those drawings to make sure all the engineers and all the architecture is exactly what it needs to be. And then we also take and we have peer review process. We have another project manager come in there and review it. And then once we do that and make those changes, then we'll come in and we'll have the estimation guys, the procurement guys, and whoever's going to be the ops manager and the superintendent all come. We
It's
open up
great.
all the pages, we flip them, go through the whole set. We may take 2 or 3 hours with these guys and go through all that. And so all of us are in the same company, we're on the same team, and we all care about getting the doctor something that is going to be less stressful at the end of the day for the doctor. So, in all that, I would say too that because we are bringing all those things together, it means the doctor is not having to control all that and try to
Hmm.
organize all that. So
Yeah.
they can go and practice medicine like it's like a car, right? If
Yeah.
hey, I got to go get my transmission replaced or whatever, you are not going to go there and them tell you, hey, you need your transmission replaced. And the doctor's not going to go home and be like, okay, I guess I'm going to replace the transmission, right? He's going to trust. He's going to find a mechanic he trusts, and then he's going to have them go replace it while he is busy making people's smiles more beautiful. So it's the same thing here. You really got to find a team. It does take finding somebody who is knowledgeable in the dental arena and orthodontic arena,
Hmm.
especially with startups. I know we're going to talk about it a little bit more later, but if somebody just goes and starts to design you something that's gorgeous and beautiful and not practical to what you
Yes.
actually need and your
Yep.
workflow, like it doesn't mean anything. It's nice on paper, but when you get to the office, like it just doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and you're going to be the one walking into that office for the next 5 or 10 years, and you're going to be the one who's going to look at that wall or be like, why wasn't this here? Why didn't we have some glass here so I can see through? And it, there's a lot of things that are so dental and orthodontic specific that by not having somebody that knows that arena and just having somebody else like a local architect work on it, that it just it takes away from what you're going to have in the end and the practical use and the amount of money you can make out of the
Hmm.
office as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I always say design is a hard word to use in our industry because it means a lot of different things. And
Yeah,
when I talk to my doctors, my goal, my hope is that they will always work with an architectural firm or a design build firm that understands our industry. Because
yeah,
to your point, what I always want is no matter if we've got a 1,500 square foot space or a 3,000 square foot space, what we have to first do is really design out the flow and the function of how that's like the to your point, if we don't have that designed out well, and when we're using the best use of space in whether it's the 1,500 square foot or the 3,000 square foot space, number one, you can just be paying for a lot of wasted space. But number two, nobody wants to turn a corner and hit a cabinet, but it looked really cool
yeah,
until you do that 10 times and you're like, what in the world? How, what,
yeah.
what was the design here?
Right.
So I always say that first level, to your point, is so ridiculously important to get that flow and function figured out. And then you truly bring in that design component, right? That's the pretty wallpaper that we're putting on the wall, or the colors that we're choosing, or the chandelier that we're going to put into the, that's like the lipstick on top, right? If we don't have that flow and function figured out, it can really make for a poorly designed practice in something that doesn't seem like you can work well in for years to come. I want to just kind of on piggyback on something that you said, because I definitely have seen this ebb and flow where for a while everybody felt like, and I hear this all the time in the chat groups, I was in there and people are like, you're really ridiculous if you don't go bid that out to at least 3 different contractors, or
Yeah,
you don't this, that, or the other. And when we look back around COVID time, I think you and I can both say there was a point where pre-COVID, it was all about bids, bids, get bids. And then I felt like after, right around COVID and right after, contractors were not hungry at all. And they're like, you know what I mean? If you aren't choosing to work with me right from the beginning, it's not even, don't even waste my time. And I think we've kind of come back around and now we've got this really nice balance. And for me personally, as a consultant that works with startups, I absolutely prefer to have a company that we're working with, if it all works out, that we are doing this design build. And docs, I want you to hear this, because If we can know, we know we've got $1 million coming from the bank if we're doing a startup in our build out process. And that we all think, oh, that seems like so much money. How could I ever spend $1 million at 2,000 square foot space at 230 a square foot? Do the math real quickly. You're going to see how fast,
Yeah.
you possibly how much of that just goes to construction. And those are just generic numbers for anybody that's listening. But my point is, to think about using a company where we're thinking about that from the beginning, where we're thinking about, okay, if our budget is, we can't be over 230 a square foot. We're designing it from the beginning with that number in mind, not designing it and then hoping that it comes in at the 230. And to your point of that value engineering, unfortunately, that is a lot of times where you've got this amazing office of your dreams designed out, but the designer, because a lot of times the designers that people will use don't understand the construction side of it. It looks pretty, and that floating ceiling with that looks like you're in a museum looks beautiful until it goes to paper and somebody's, how am I going to build that? And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, you and I both know there's a lot of players involved when we're thinking about a project. And again, whether it's a startup or it's your second forever practice, or it could be more than that. But most of the time, my docs, it's about 8 years in, 10 years in, we're like, okay, now it's time to build our forever practice. And what is that going to look like? Can you talk a little bit about, just, you've alluded to it a little bit, but kind of how everybody plays in and works together, and maybe where things fall a little bit short? I've definitely got my opinion on it, but I'd love to hear yours.
In the whole process of things, right?
Yeah.
Some of it comes back to the space. When you're looking for space, you really need a space that has, especially if you're a startup, like it, you don't go get a huge space. You need to have somebody who's on the realty side who understands what you're needing and the amount of power you need, the HVAC. There's a lot that goes into that, but picking the right space is one thing that I do see some gaps happen in. Like they don't have enough HVAC, they don't have enough power. And then as far as the design itself, I've worked with a lot of the different supply companies, and they all have design departments. They all actually do a pretty good job most of the time of doing a layout. They're doing that because they have many years of experience creating a layout. It's generally formed around the same concepts each time. So it works. And I'll say this to the people that I've worked with a lot, like if somebody brings us a job and their plan, like I'm not going to go downgrade their plan. You know what I'm saying? They brought the work to us. But I will talk to the doctor about, hey, listen, maybe we could adjust some things here. We can adjust some things here and maybe make it a little bit nicer here. But when you go to, say, a local architect, right? So if you go to hire somebody, or your friend knows somebody, right? But they've never designed a dental office before, they really don't know what you need. So you are training them what they need to do for you, and you're spending your time doing that, right? You're wasting time. And so if you can find somebody who really knows the industry, who knows what rooms need to be adjacent to what other rooms automatically to help the flow work better, it works so much easier for you, and it makes your life easier. You don't have to take a look at a plan and be like, no, that's not what I meant, because that adds to the time. So you do have interior designers, like you mentioned, and I've worked with a lot of them. We have several here that we work with. So like when somebody comes on design build here, they have the architect, they have the engineering, they have the interior design, the structural, civil, like we take all that on so that the doctors don't have to even worry about that. We just have the meetings and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And what do you like? What don't you like? But with interior designer, their focus mainly is on making it look pretty, like you said, right? And the problem is when you do go to value engineering, like those are some of the first things that get cut. Cabinetry and finishes. I know, sorry, you can't have tile in all the bathroom walls or whatever. So everybody comes at it from whatever their perspective is and what their experience is. So that's why it's important, I think, to find somebody who designs dental offices specifically so that they can help guide you, because especially as a startup, like, you know, where you've worked before and you know how they've done it. And that's how you've been trained, because it's kind of like growing up, you know, you do what you've been trained to do. Sometimes you may glean something from the designer you're working with if they are an industry specific designer. And that may be like, oh, you know what? I never thought about that before. And that helps you do something different that you weren't planning on doing, but that helps your efficiency. So somebody who does not know dental and orthodontics is not going to be able to give you that kind of feedback and that kind of input. And then contractors are going to build whatever is in the plans. So that comes back to, it doesn't really matter what the intent was. If the design of the plans and what's in the blueprints don't actually portray what it was that the designer and you talked about, then it doesn't really matter what you talked about. That intent is gone. It's what's in the plan. And that comes down to outlets. Like, we know where your outlets need to go, right? We know how the HVAC needs to be set up, the mechanical system. We know if you're putting an autoclave under a cabinet, you probably need a fan, an exhaust fan underneath there to suck out all the oxygen so you don't destroy the laminate above it, right? So there's a lot of just little bitty intricate things that going with a orthodontic practice or dental practice. So those things are going to get lost if you go to somebody that does not know the practice. They're going to be over there on ChatGPT. Okay, how do I design a dental office? What are the, I'm being facetious, but
good point. There could be some of that going on, though.
That's where you go now instead of Google. But it's it amazes me how many times we've come back and we've had somebody design a plan for somebody, and then they come to us and they're like, "Hey, can you build this for me?" We're like, "Yeah, for sure. Let me see what you got." And then it's okay, and there's 100 questions. "Hey, I don't see this or this or this. Did you talk to them about this?" And it's just because that person didn't know. It's just ignorance of the industry. So that to me is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And now a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Want a cleaner workflow for orthodontic cases? Meet Clarity Solutions from Solventum, formerly 3M Healthcare. The Clarity portal puts aligners, digital bonding, and retainers in a single streamlined platform. One workflow, fewer handoffs, and more control for planning through retention. Simplify your next case. Reach out to your local Solventum sales rep today or visit us at go.solventum.com/clarity. Again, that is go.solventum.com/clarity to learn more.
So I want to ask you, and I'm gonna dip my toe into, this might be a bit controversial here, but I want to get your perspective on when clients come to you that have originally started with an equipment specialist. And for me, and I think a lot of people know my perspective on this, but I'll just say it to be really clear. That is not my preferred approach to designing out an orthodontic office. I feel like although our equipment specialists may have some knowledge in this, having 20 years of experience seeing plans now, it is all squares and rectangles and hallways and boxes. And it doesn't matter if it's, again, a 3,000 square foot space or a 1,500 square foot space. And some of the things that I run into, and I'm curious, because I want to talk about this, and docs, I want you to hear me, is although that seems like, oh, I'm going to save so much money by getting these air quote free plans by this industry, maybe specialist, depending upon how long they've been selling equipment and depending upon how many ortho plans versus dental plans they've actually done. What I tend to see is many times a lot of things get missed with those plans, and we actually end up wasting our time because we're putting our energy into a space, and then you get it in front of an engineer and they're like, but the ducting doesn't work, or there's actually a wall that they just erased out of the CAD plans because that didn't work so well.
There's a structural problem there.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm curious, and I know I'm kind of putting you on the hot spot. You and I both have a lot of industry friends that are in that, but I want to speak really real about this because I do feel like there is a lot of lost time. We were talking about it, the lost time on the bidding component of it. I feel like there's a lot of lost time a lot of times on the front end, or if docs are getting themselves really dialed into a plan and then everything is dashed when they're like, that actually doesn't work. So would you mind kind of just talking to us a little bit about that and why, your thoughts on, to me, I'm like, just get in front of your design build team, get in front of your architect, like right from the beginning, do your test fit with the people who are going to take you to the end, and bring your equipment specialists in when we're ready to actually talk about equipment and how their specific little one sheet of the plan makes sense and plays into the whole grand scheme of it.
Yeah, very tactfully, I would say first. Especially if it's somebody they've known for a long time, they've worked with a lot, because I know coming from Atlanta Dental, there were people with 20 and 30-year relationships with the equipment specialists. Yeah, it's a matter of taking it back to how much revenue are you planning on making from here? What are the spaces in the space that you really want to make revenue with, and where you're going to get the most of, and what's your budget? And then coming back and saying, okay, listen, we can reform this as needed to fit your flow that you really want and to make it look like you want it. We can be creative in using materials and whatnot to get the look and the type of aesthetics that you want. But yeah, especially if I see that a client is not necessarily bought into that plan that the equipment manufacturer did, then I will do everything I can to try to turn them more like the captain of the Titanic trying to turn, you know what I'm saying? You know, it takes a second. It takes building that relationship to do that. But I think it's a matter of, in the end, like I said, they're going to be the ones walking in there for 5 to 10 years in that practice, or 20 years. So I don't want them walking in thinking, man, I wish Shawn had told me that I should have done this. And I want them knowing that from the get-go, we're guiding them the best way we can, no matter where that plan came from. So I have no problem changing the plan. So
yeah. And again, I know I sound pretty taking a pretty big stance here, but I think what I just want our listeners to hear is that it is so much more. This design free isn't forever. And what I want is, if you're going to take the time to do a startup and you're going to take the time to design out the space, where we don't want to skimp is in design. And that flow and function fundamental piece of an office. And so if we can build on that and stay within budget, and know that we don't have hallways to nowhere, and know that, we didn't build out just to put equipment into an office. This is your forever home, or is a 10-year home, as long as you're going to hold that lease or whatever. And I just really advocate for getting in front of the right people that are going to help you make those decisions, because most of you have never done a practice before, and you don't even know sometimes the questions to ask or the things to be aware of. And I think a good team around you, architects, design teams, Blue Frog, all the different companies that are out there that deal with this day in and day out, are going to be the best advocates for you in keeping your budget in mind and yet keeping function of office in mind.
I would also say that you kind of look at what the equipment specialist provided as kind of like the test fit that we do up front. That's really all it is. It's one snapshot of, hey, what could this plan look like? And then it's time to really dig in together. So I always tell my teammates here, don't get your ego wrapped around this plan that you did, that you thought for hours on, and you think everything's perfect. That plan's going to crash against the rocks in the first meeting, because there's going to be something they want to adjust, and it's going to affect over here, and it's going to affect over here, and the whole plan's going to get updated. But in the end, the collaboration between us and the client and the engineers, like, it's going to produce a set that's going to make it so much better for them. So taking the ego out of it is a very important thing for us to do. My hope would be that whatever equipment specialist I'm working with at the time also has that mindset. And we're still going to get, the doctor's going to need equipment no matter what. So it's just going to be maybe in a different location.
Exactly. So let's switch gears a little bit. And I want to talk about just hidden costs, because we do our best to figure out what a project is going to cost. We have an idea of across the nation what building per square foot is. But I want you to talk a little bit about where you see kind of hidden costs show up. I know you alluded to it a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but just what doctors can do to make sure surprises aren't happening, and maybe what they should be thinking about or looking for that could be that little whammy that gets.
Right. One of the first things kind of comes back to the actual tenant space as well. So
Mm-hmm.
is a big issue sometimes. For example, we also do a lot of vet clinics, but I have a clinic right now that it's like a 20,000 square foot clinic, and it's got 11 existing RTUs on the rooftop, right? And we went out there to take a look at it up front because we'll let them know, hey, that we're going to do a report for you and find out, is the water heater capacity enough? Is the electrical capacity enough? Is the water flow into the space big enough? And is the existing HVAC equipment enough? We get up there and you can't even read the plates on the units, 11 units. So just imagine how much that is to replace all of those. They were not planning on doing that. So if up front, and you can even get somebody to go look at the space before you sign the lease, because
Yes.
their lease was that, hey, if the unit goes, it's on you. So being able to have a good real estate agent that can help you look through those leases and make sure you have,
Mm-hmm.
verbiage in there so that if that has to be replaced, then the landlord's paying for it and not you. That could be several $100,000 in that case, right? So
Yes. Yes.
there are some things that you can't control. So we did have a clinic. We went in, it was an old Eckerd's building or something. And they started trenching for plumbing. And this is one of my favorite stories.
I love it. I love it.
They started trenching for plumbing. And in this one location, they cut the concrete and the concrete just falls into this void. This is in the middle of an Eckerd's building, right? It's a 10, 11,000 square foot building. So they keep cutting and keep cutting. And they ended up pulling out like 3 truckloads of trash. They had put a construction debris under the building.
Oh,
Like the
gosh.
amount of stuff they pulled out of there. And then like the doctor didn't know that was there. We didn't know that was there. You just got to run with it. So
Mhm.
I would say you always want to have some contingency built in. A lot of times banks will put in contingency 10% or so. When we do our budget estimates, we also build in contingency on top of what the bank has, because you never know. You're going to run into termites. You're going to run into rust or any number of things. Lots of things can happen in construction that you just don't know. When you watch HGTV, like that part of HGTV is absolutely real. You're going to run into things and have to figure out, hey, can I spend the money here? Can I add more money? The hidden costs when it comes to plans are that if somebody does plans and they're not putting all the information in there, then that's what comes to the change orders, like I mentioned later. You're not planning on that, but that can definitely happen. A lot of times when you're getting allowances up front, those are things that also can, like a contractor says, I'll put an allowance for this, because they don't know yet. Those are the type of things that you need to keep track of, because that can come back and bite you later too. And we had 20 grand in there, but it's really going to be 50 grand. That's another 30 grand you got to spend.
Yeah, yeah. I think those are all great points. And I can think of stories with my clients over the years to every single one of your points where it's just, sometimes you just scratch your head like, what? Or you just, like we've always, when I'm working with a client, like one of the first things we are actually always making sure is, does our lease actually include an HVAC? Like you would think that I'm walking into a building, of course it's got air conditioning and heating, but you and I both know that never make that assumption. Or little things to your point of, I see this a lot in medical buildings where, a lot of our plumbing is done under the floor. And if you happen to have maybe your tenant below you, the tenant below you is a bank, and
Yep.
they aren't gonna let you come through the ceiling, or a secure site for whatever reason. Or there's just things that we kind of take for granted. And some of this comes in the construction side, to your point, but also on the front end of, I think your point is very valid. If you can have somebody come out and walk that space with you before you're signing that lease, so you're as much as possible eyes wide open, because a lot of times we are saying, hey, we want some adjustments. We want to up that TI because that HVAC unit is 20 years old. And if you're going to have it in there that I'm responsible for it, let's start with the new one, type of a thing, or an allowance for me to build that in.
That's
I
right.
just had a client that was going into a new space, and right next door was a spin studio. And that sounds great until you're listening to the bass of a music all day long, and now you're having to do sound mitigation.
Yeah.
I think it's those things that if we've got people that are on our side, advocating for us, helping us walk through and think about. And then when we're getting into our lease negotiations, saying, hey, I want to at least ask the landlord to help pay for some sound mitigation going in, or I want to have an idea of what it costs so that when I get into my cost per square foot, we haven't just blown past what we thought our costs were going to be.
I think there's also like permitting is something that I know a lot of architects and designers will try to look forward and contact the permitting agency and find out what's going to be required in this jurisdiction, especially a lot of places might not require a sprinkler system, but there are some cities we've run into that they're like, I don't care if it's not required by the fire code. We will require you to have a sprinkler system. So now in a startup clinic, add $40,000 or $50,000 to your budget for a sprinkler system. Sometimes air quality for certain clinics might need a higher cost mechanical unit. But also, if you're moving from a tenant space to a site, the amount of things on a site that can be different that you're not thinking about, that you really need to get a civil engineer involved first to take a look at it, determine, is the zoning okay for me to put an orthodontic office here? Or zoning has messed up many a plan because, and you know what I mean? And then you got to go do all these meetings over a course of months, spend money in design just to maybe be able to do the rezoning process or the conditional use process, special use process. There's all these different names for it, but it's essentially they're controlling what's in the zoning. So you may or may not be able to do that. You may have to go through, we did one recently that had to literally amend the town's, their code. We had to go in there and not just rezone the site, but there's a whole zoning code they had that we had to go in and amend the code in order to allow dentistry of any sort to happen in that code. So you're talking about hiring a lawyer. You need a land use attorney for this, getting civil engineer, getting architects involved, and doing a lot of the design up front for what you would need to do on that site, and the grading and everything, and figure out what that needs to be in order to present to a city council and to maybe neighborhood councils and go visit with people who live around there to have the possibility to be approved. So it's a lot of money up front to do something like that. Doing a ground up building is just a lot more cost anyways. So you want to make sure, like we do something called a feasibility study. And that's kind of like doing that due diligence. So if you have a site that you really want, and you could do this with anybody, but you have a site that you really want, you really need to build into that contract a due diligence period of at least 90 to 120 days if you can. If they really are pushing you, they might ask you to do in 30 to 60 days. But that gives a person who's helping you in design have a chance to really fully investigate the site with a civil engineer, see what kind of zoning issues and setbacks and buffers, and if there's architectural regulations that might make the outside of the building cost more because it has to be all brick or stone or glass. There's a lot of things that go into that they can then put together a report and tell you, okay, listen, here's what we think your building is going to look like. This is what your site's going to look like. This is how much that's going to cost. And these are the regulations that are affecting the site. So that's the way we do it. And there's been a few times that it's been like, listen, you need to steer clear of the site. You're going to end up having to do, we even had one client who bought like a 5-acre plot of land, was looking at buying it. And we said, okay, for your budget, you need to plan on just initially developing this corner over here. Put your practice on it, put your parking, don't touch the rest, because this particular county is extremely strict in all the regulations and everything and what they need. And if we only touch this part and we separate out the property, then all you have to touch is the part that you're saying is going to be your dental property. But that wasn't the master plan. And in the end, in order to fit their budget, that's what we did because we are budget driven.
Yeah.
But in the end, they wanted to end up doing something else and create kind of a plaza. And as soon as we started doing that and didn't separate out the property, the county said, no, you have to do the entire property. You have to grade everything, provide detention for all the stormwater, all this horse fencing across the back and across the front, and all this landscaping they made us do. It added probably $600,000 or $700,000 to the project, just in site work, because they wanted us to touch all this portion. So it cut the deal. But it's a matter of, that's where it comes back to trusting. You got to be willing to trust and listen to the people that you're hiring and that you are putting around you, because they are the ones who do this every single day.
Yeah.
They don't work on teeth. They design and they build. So they're trying to do that to allow you to work on teeth, not
absolutely.
Business, We're trying to be the quarterback and help do all this other stuff so that you can remain doing what you're doing and continue building revenue, and just let us handle this. But it is a stressful time of life to do a build.
Yeah.
Not the design part. The design part's fun.
Yeah. It's always that absolutely is the fun part. And I think that the take home message is work with the right team, surround yourself with the right people. And then you're going in eyes wide open right from the beginning, or to the best of your ability. And it just causes and helps you have a much smoother process the whole way through, because nobody likes the whammy that come at you. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Oh, nobody told me about that. Oh, I didn't even know I should be thinking about that. And I think that can happen a lot of times when we've got a lot of different people working on the project, but nobody is really heading up the project and bringing it all the way through. So I know you and I I am as excited about this as you are, and I can talk about this, and I know you can too, Shawn, but of course we're going to have to kind of start to wrap this up. One final question, and we'll have to keep this short, but if you were to say, hey, docs out there, this is where I think you need to be investing when you're looking at doing a startup versus, or maybe where I think you need to be investing for kind of that long-term success, kind of what's your take-home message there?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest, not a lot of people are going to know this answer, but it's what's coming. And I think that AI in the realm of the dental arena is going to be huge in coming years. I know here specifically, we're starting a full-on training system for all of our folks here to help to use it, but there are hundreds of billions of dollars being spent on it right now. And I don't care if you're young or old, like it is what's going to happen in the next few years. And I'm not Elon Musk. I don't know exactly how it's going to affect the dental and orthodontic world specifically, but just a year ago, I was on a podcast and I mentioned that, and they were like, oh yeah, but I'm telling you, it has progressed exponentially over the last year. So figuring that out and trying to be a little bit more leading edge on that, how that's going to help with looking at x-rays, developing patient care, and being able to help your patients in a way that maybe they don't know it's AI that creates it, but to automate some tasks that your people do and allow them to do more. If you can even double the amount of efficiency that your people can do, your front desk, techs, everything, if they can do that and allow you to be able to do more marketing, allow them to get out there more, and allow them to serve your patients more through other methods, like what is that worth? That's like a whole, say you have 5 people and they're all using it and doubling. That means you essentially have 5 more employees by utilizing these agents. Again, I love AI. Yeah, I've been into it very deep here lately, if you look at my LinkedIn page, but just seeing what it's doing in regular businesses and thinking about what that can impact in doctors' offices it's huge. And I don't know how many people are actually looking at it in that sense right now, but it's coming.
Yeah, for sure. Shawn, if somebody wants to learn more about Blue Frog, they want to get some guidance on a project, they're like, I think I'm really connecting here. What's going to be the best way that they can get in touch with you or the team?
Sure. Yeah. You can go to our website, befrog.net. You can email me at srainey@bfrog.net, or Andrew is a guy that deals with a lot of our dental practices here as well. That's amedina@bfrog.net, and we can get that information out to you to share as well. But
Perfect.
you can always call me as well. I am on LinkedIn, but we would love to help you and figure out ways to make projects work for you in your budget.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And now, a word from the sponsors who make this podcast possible. Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at GetSmileSuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence.
All right, the way I love to finish up Hey Docs is I love to do a little speed round. Are you ready for a couple questions?
I am. I made some notes.
Okay. All right. Here we go. What is one of the most unexpected lessons you've learned in your career?
A lot of times it comes down to who you know.
That's a good one.
Just the way God's worked in my life. He has moved me from one place to another strictly by people that knew who I was, what I did, and what they needed at the time. And it's what I would tell my kids too. Cultivate relationships and be ready to help other people. But yeah, that's who you know matters far more than kids realize.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that. Sorry.
You're fine.
All right. Good thing we got one more question. Garrett can cut all this out for me. All right, here we go. If you could give your younger self one piece of career advice, what would that be?
Learn from others' mistakes. One thing my dad always told me was don't make all the mistakes yourself. And I would go back and reiterate that, because kids don't always listen to their parents the best, but really standing on the shoulders of other people who've gone before you and seeking out people who are in the position I want to be in and hanging around them and learning from them. I know, at least for you doctors, a lot of times find a mentor that's doing what you want to be doing in the next 5 to 10 years, find out how they're doing that, and then have them help you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right. This has just been an absolute pleasure. Like I said, I know you and I could just talk, and I'll definitely have you on again so we can have some more good conversations.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being a part of Hey Docs today.
Thank you, Jill. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Mm-hmm.